Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Small Business Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Kyle, and of course, I'm here with my dad and my co-host, Josh. How are you doing today, Dad?
Hey, Kyle. Hey, everyone. I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited about today's episode. We're going to talk about something that every entrepreneur faces, but not everyone likes to discuss: how to overcome failure and how to use it to your advantage.
Yeah, man, I'm actually really excited to talk about this. I mean, failure is a natural part of the entrepreneurial journey, and it's not the end. In fact, it can be one of the most valuable learning experiences. So let's dive in and explore how to turn setbacks into stepping stones. So
100%.
first, before we get started, I'm going to read off the definition of failure, and I have some other talking points I want to talk about this. But if you look up failure on Google, the first thing that pops up is lack of success, and I think in the business world that's a little bit different. I don't really say failure is a lack of success. I view failure as, okay, I tried something, it didn't work, but it's going to lead me to success.
Yeah, I mean, technically it is still lack of success, right? But it's lack of success trying to implement a new idea or a new thing, right? Listen, everyone, how about this? All over, everyone's like, "Oh, an overnight success, overnight this, overnight." Like people are like, "Wow, you like blew up, dude." Even us, they're like, "Wow, your business, dude." We've been this is almost 5 years in the making. You know what I mean? Like no one talks about the previous. No one talks about struggles. They don't talk about the this. They don't talk about the that. They don't talk about the 3 years or 2 years or 5 years of grinding and building and getting through issues and figuring stuff out and just go and go and go and go to make it work, right? They don't talk about that. They only talk about the good. Like, look
Yeah.
how successful I am. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, cool, good for you. But why don't you tell people about the 3 or 4 or 5 years before so that they understand that this is actually the struggle and you're not some magic person, because that's how a lot of the general public perceives it. They're like, wow, it's overnight success. No, there's no such. I mean, there is a thing, but you have to get outrageously lucky, right, for it to be an actual overnight success.
Yeah.
Even influencers and stuff. It's occasionally it happens, but not very often. Generally there is no overnight success, right? You go back and look at like the Paul brothers, even, right? Dude, how many videos did they put out? How much content did they put out before they got popular?
Yeah. On multiple different media forms. Like,
Everything, all over the
yeah.
place for a what, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not an overnight thing, dude. It's not. It just is viewed that way because all of a sudden you're in everyone's frame of their life in some way, shape, or form, and you weren't. And since you don't say,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey guys, this has been a long time getting here, but I'm finally here. I'm really excited to be in front of all you guys." Blah blah blah. They don't say any of that. They're just like, "I'm the man.
Yeah.
I'm the woman." You know what I mean? Like that's what
Mm-hmm.
it's all about. Along the way, you're gonna face and incur and smash into failure after failure after failure. Ask any business person out there. It doesn't matter how small or how big, how much money they had to start with or not, right? It doesn't matter. You're gonna run into conflicts and failures constantly,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
I do. I agree with you 110% on that. Um, that and yeah, like I said, like obviously that is the true definition of failure, but I think
100%.
that
But
it's
there's
so
definitely
much
some
more than that.
nuances. There's
Yeah,
a lot of
exactly.
nuances that come into play with business, right? To be honest with you, if your mindset is right, even in your personal life, those failures can still be looked at the same way. That's how I view every failure in my life, right?
Yep.
But to be fair, to be honest, every small business owner that I know, that I'm friends with, that I do business with, like they all do the same thing I do, right? It's the people who've never done a small business, never had a small business, or never been like on that tier of in charge of a small business, or you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
there's situations, but if you're not in this realm, like most people just don't get it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like, I failed. Okay, learn from it.
a
Figure out
hundred
what you did
percent.
wrong, and then do it again, but do it different,
Yep,
right?
100%.
So
I
it really all comes down to like embracing failure, right? That's a pretty weird statement to hear, but genuinely, when I fail, dude, when I fail at something, I like I sit back in my chair and I go like this, and I just take it in and hug it as tight as I can and not let anything go, so I can break down every little freaking piece of that thing and figure out where exactly I went wrong, but more importantly, what I could have done differently, right? Okay, so this path didn't work. So where do I go from there? But I embrace it. I own it because I know it's only going to make me better. It's going to make my business better. It's going to make my team better, right? It's going to make everything in our lives better because we're going to embrace it and then figure it out.
Yeah, and I think that when you embrace it, it really helps. Like you said, it really helps you be able to dissect. Because in your failure, there are still a ton of things that went right that you'll be able to use for either your
Yeah.
next step or even something you didn't even think about altogether. That's the great part about failing and why you need to embrace it is because it helps you learn and grow. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It'll help you and your business.
that's a really good point. Whenever I fail in anything in business, whenever I failed, 99.9% of the stuff I did correct. It's just one thing. You do one little thing can derail the whole show, right? So it's just that one little spot. You just got to figure, so it's tweak that. And then eventually you'll hit another little spot. And then you tweak that. And then you keep going, right? But how about this? If you don't embrace failure, you're lying to yourself. You're pretending it didn't happen. However you want to word that, right? You're in denial. The
Yeah.
only if you embrace it, you'll learn and you'll get better.
Mm-hmm.
If you deny it and you're like, no, that's not a thing, or yeah, okay, whatever. That was because you come up with excuses. That was because of this, or that was because of that, and you haven't actually analyzed it. Your business is going to go like this. It's inevitable, right? That's why so many businesses go out of business before the 5-year mark, right? Because people are like, I'm doing it the right way. Well, no, you're not. You're failing. Figure it out. Do something different, right? What's the definition of insanity?
Yeah. Doing the same thing
Gordon,
over and over
right?
again, expecting different results.
Exactly, right? So stop driving yourself insane. Embrace, own it, and say, I fucked up, and fix it, and then just keep pushing forward. It doesn't matter. Even if everything crumbles to the ground, say, okay, that my base level was not strong enough. Let me rebuild it stronger and keep going. Right?
Yeah.
There is no, how many times, how many times did I rebuild the end of our company? Right? Our company's a little bit different because there's not really a business model out there doing like what we do. Right? So how many times did I rebuild the back end? 9, 10, a dozen?
Yeah, more
Like,
times than
because it just,
I lost. We lost count.
right. I built it out and it worked fine. And I'm like, oh, this isn't really built for scale. So I built it for scale. I'm like, oh, this isn't built for the kind of scale we're doing. So I did that. And I'm like, oh, okay, what I did didn't actually work. I thought that was going to be good. That wasn't. So back to the drawing board, then back to the drawing board, and back to the drawing board. Now we have a beast that no one, even if people jump in our industry, they're not going to be able to catch up to us. You know what I mean? Because of all the time and energy we put in on the front end and dealing with the failures and accepting them and owning them and then moving forward.
Yeah.
Right?
And I really think that we're like, we have our bullet point notes. I feel like we end up talking about our note list that we always have every episode. But I mean, I just feel like you can't talk about embracing your failures without talking about analyzing it at the same time. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, because that's the very first step.
Mhm.
That's the very first step. You go, I fucked up, and then you immediately have to go into analyze mode. Right? Why? Who, what, when, where, why? Right? Like why? Why did you screw up? You didn't screw up. Right? Like that's negative self-talk. Where did I screw up? Where did I do this? Where did I do that? Right? Where did the system fail? Right? You have to be analytical. You cannot be self-deprecating because all you're going to do is drive yourself into a hole. You're going to drive yourself into depression and then you're done. Right? So at an early stage like that, unless you got a lot of money, like you're done. So you have to be able to self-analyze and say, okay, where did the system that I have in place, what went wrong with my system and how can I fix it? Right? When you worked for somebody else, when I worked for other people and something would go wrong, I go, okay, where did the system break down? How, and I go, oh, right here. How can I fix that and make sure it doesn't happen again? right? And how can I make sure the company keeps running smooth? Because that was my job, right? So I did that. Why is it any different at my own company, right? Why do people have to wear the weight of a failure or a mistake? Why do you wear that? You shouldn't. Have you ever have you ever built the business before? Right? Was it successful? If it was, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast, I promise you. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, no,
it
100%.
you just have to be real with yourself. It doesn't matter how long you've been in business. I've been running businesses since I was 17 years old on my own. As a manager, running a complete business. I was in charge of marketing and everything by the time I was 18 for the whole company. My boss is like, I trust you. See you later, kid. I'm like, what? Are you serious? You know what I mean? But like, I
Yeah.
did it. I figured it out. I failed a lot, but it didn't matter. I'm like, okay, where did I go wrong? Where did I go wrong? Where did I go wrong? Right? And and then I realized that I should stop saying where did I go wrong and start analyzing the actual scenario. And once I started doing that, right, everything went away. Once I removed the I from the situation, right, all the bad stuff goes away. And then all you're going to be able to once you actually get to that point, the only thing you're going to do is start learning from your failure.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I and that's very ironic that you say that, because that leads us up literally into our next part that we want to talk about, and that's learning from your failure. You're getting way better at you can see the improvement. You do the segues for me. I don't even gotta do that shit now, man.
I
But
just
yeah,
trying to
learning
hook you
now.
up, bro. I love you, man. I'm
Yeah,
just trying to hook you up.
I mean, learning from your failure is a very important step that we also cannot go without talking about.
Yeah,
Being able to be like, all right, this got messed up. Not maybe it was something that you did, maybe it was something that didn't, but something got fucked up. Being able to take a second and be able to, and learn from it is going to be way more valuable than just being like, it's cool. I fixed it. We're good. No, that's not. You can't do that, because then it's just then you're not going to learn, and then when the next failure comes up or this thing messes up again, you're not going to know, like, you're not going to know what to do, and you're going to have to, it's going to take you longer next time. You know
that's
what
a
I
really
mean?
great point that you just brought up, though, right? Like, what happens when you have a failure that seems really tiny, right? And you're like, oh, fixed, and just keep going, right? You know what that is? That's a missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not, you should never say, oh, that was easy, and just keep going, right? Because every time you do that, you're literally throwing knowledge out the window. Does that make sense? Because every time, look, I take 100% positive sales, right, or positive scenarios, and I break it down and say what I've done differently. Break it down every time. It helps you not be self-deprecating if you do it when it's positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Find some way to do it where you're not beating yourself up, so that you can actually learn from what you broke down, right? Otherwise, when you're breaking it down, you're going to crash and burn, and you're never going to get to the learning phase.
Yeah, and that's another good point you brought up too, is the learning from it and beating yourself up about it are completely two different things that have completely two different impacts on you.
Yeah,
Beating yourself up about it, you're just like you said before. If you beat yourself up, you're not going to go anywhere. It's actually very counterproductive, and there's no need to beat yourself up. Everyone makes mistakes. Every company that you can think of on this planet has failed and made mistakes at one point or another, and they still do, and they're still going to. It's just
yeah,
what happened. You know what I mean? Like, there's no need to beat yourself up about it. Things happen.
yeah.
Life happens. You know what I mean?
Let's talk about some examples real quick of the type of failures that we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, I feel like, my personal opinion, when I say, it's just me, my gut. I feel like a lot of people who want to start a small business who might be listening to this, or people who just started a small business who are listening to this, I feel like the mentality is a failure means you're done. Like, you just failed, right? And ultimately, that's what ends up happening to business. How many businesses go out of business within their first 5 years in the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's an ultimate failure, 100%. And by the way, I had that as well, right? I had my own brick and mortar business, jewelry store, and everything just went under, right? I lost everything. It happens. But the lessons I learned from that along the way with my failures made it so I was able to sustain as long as I did. And I was actually really successful, right? I got destroyed by the recession. And I like even by friends that had been in the business for 30 years and had a massive following of people, half of them went out of business because they couldn't sustain um excuse me, they couldn't sustain uh the 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 stretch of nobody spending money.
Yeah.
Because during a recession, people have to cut, loosen up, and tighten their purse, right? Well, what is the first thing to get cut? I would say jewelry. That's a pretty luxurious expense. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
that's
it
pretty high
was
up there. Yeah.
right. So what was the overall lesson I learned from that? I need to build a recession-proof business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, but that was a long time ago. I mean, that was, geez, that was in '08. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and when I say we lost everything, just a quick side note, when I say we lost everything, I mean I lost everything. Right? I was a kid. I knew how to run a business. I had two small kids of my own. My daughter was in diapers when I opened my business. Right? Like it's, but at the end of the, I wasn't to do what I was doing because I didn't understand that I should have gotten an LLC or a S corp or something like that. So I just went and opened with a DBA. Everyone I knew those business, that's what they had. So I just did the same thing. Right? It turns out that was a really, really, really bad idea. Right? So because if you do that, by the way, it doesn't cost that much money to get an LLC. At least go get a freaking LLC in your state and do everything that way. Right? Because then if you do go under, you don't lose everything. You only lose the business stuff. They can't take your house. They can't take your cars. They can't. I promise you, do that. Um, get topic, right? Um, let's kind of bring it back. You know, what's are you kind of?
Uh,
You think you're done with that? You want to go on to the next thing?
well, I mean that touched a little bit on real life stories, and that was something that we want to talk about. I mean, that's a real thing. It happens all the time, and I mean that's a huge story to share. I mean, not a lot of people have experienced that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And have gone through it and lived through it. So that's definitely I think that was very valuable to talk about 100% because that's like you said that's a lot of business owners' greatest fear. But and another thing I want to touch on as well is when people attach failure to business, like you said, it's very like if you
it's
fail,
heavy.
that's it, your business is done. And normally
Think
when
of
your
it as
business is
a
done, it's
heavy weight. Yeah,
mhm.
it's one thing.
Normally
It's
when
like that Acme thing
yeah
that drops down and try to get the coyote, right? Like
yeah exactly when
it, it it's
it's just
it's not
not
all or none, right? Like my
mhm.
business that I opened before when you were little, right? That was all or none, but that was out of my control. That was the
Yeah
economy and the community.
hmm
2,000 local we live in a community of 250,000, right? Over 2,000 government employees got laid off in one day. Everybody freaked out. Right? This is back in '08 or whatever it was. Everybody freaked out. So, I mean, what was I going to do? Right? And I learned, I fought, I struggled, I fought, I struggled. And now, even now, all these years later, I still learn from that. Right? Now, in between,
hmm
I'm always doing, even before that, I was always doing stuff, side hustles, this and that. Like I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I always have been. And I've always been in a position where I'm running people's companies for them or starting a new division or doing this or doing this. Right. And then any time that I was in a company and I wasn't in a position like that, I got bored really fast and usually left within a few weeks. Right. Like
yeah
entrepreneurs are like that. They need to be challenged. And the only way to challenge them, truly challenge them, is to allow them to challenge themselves. Right.
yeah
So then we can surround ourselves with the right people like you who will make our team the best, like really make our team solid. And I take
hmm
all the lessons I learned from working at other companies and have my own business and all the failures along the way of my side hustles, doing this, doing that, what works, what doesn't, right? And then I had all this knowledge, and then I still went, okay, now I'm going to open a business, and this is what it's going to be. I need to spend hours and hours and hours just researching stuff, just really getting in, understanding the industry, understanding the market that I'm about to get into, which caused me to understand that I needed to micro niche in a really unique way, and then micro niche again in a unique way. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing some crazy stuff. I need to rethink this, which evolved into what it is today. right?
Yeah.
Which is which is like a micro niche on an obscene level, right? So, but at the end of the day, it it really comes down to just you need to take it in, feel the weight of it, of little things, feel the weight of it a little bit, right? So, just enough so you go, oh, I need to look at this and look at it,
Mhm.
even if it doesn't seem like it's a problem. Look at it, and it might not be a problem. Things pop up. I look at things all the time and say, okay, how can this be different? Right? I don't say, is there a problem with this? Right? If I feel like there's a problem, I say, Kyle, I think there's something wrong with this. Check this out. So I'm missing something, right?
Mhm.
Otherwise, I just look at it analytically and say,
Yeah.
how can I make this better? How can this be better? How can I do this better? Right? And you're looking for ways of improvement. It's all about PMA, positive mental attitude. I talk about it all the time. I live my life seeking happiness and joy. I stay away from negativity. Negative people come in my life and I cut them out. People in my life become super negative and become a drag on me. I cut them out of my life. I don't care who it is. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah.
I have some pretty close family members that would agree with that statement too,
Yeah.
if they were allowed to talk to me. So my point is, right? You have to, as much as it sucks, you have to keep yourself in a positive place. If you're running a business, you're opening a business, you can't be listening to Jimmy John or Timmy or Tammy or Connie from around the corner or people that you've known for 20 years. They're confidants, right? But if they don't own a successful business, you should not be taking advice from them, right? A lot of people early on take advice from friends and people because they're like, well, they're consumers. No, dude, they're not. They're your friends. They're your
Yeah.
friends, and they feel like that they feel important because you're taking their opinion, right? Maybe a little more important than they should, right? Maybe their ego is a little self-inflated and they're saying da 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 like me, right? But they do it with no base knowledge, right? Like I'll sit here and go like this da 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 for hours about any topic that is business related, yes,
Yeah.
right? But I never do that on topics that I don't know anything about.
No, 100%.
I immediately back off. I go, I don't have enough base knowledge to have this conversation.
Mhm.
But I would like to have it and learn from you. But I can't, I'm not going to be able to put anything of value in, I don't think,
Yeah.
because I don't have enough experience. I'm very honest with myself and then I'm very honest with other people.
Yeah, and
Right.
I think another good point to talk about based off of that too is when like a lot of people when they fail they end up not trusting themselves and then that's
Yeah.
when they start asking their friends and start listening to their friends' advice.
That's
But
a great point.
you're the one who started this business. That it was you're the one that had the idea, who started putting things in place. It was you. Why don't you want to trust your ideas for the business that you came up with? You
Yeah.
have to trust yourself. You know what I mean? Like you have to be able to trust yourself or your business isn't going to do anything. And I feel like that really ties into being resilient and how to build your resiliency. And that was something that I think you just displayed greatly when talking about the jewelry store and talking about afterward and how you built your resiliency up and how you still use it to this day. So if that's something you want to touch on a little bit, the building of resiliency, I think you'd be a great person to talk about that.
Yeah, dude, it sucked. It took me a while. It did honestly take me a while I lost the business, even though it genuinely wasn't my fault. It's still that's a hard pill to swallow. You know what I mean? Um, and like I said, we lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like our house, we lost everything. Right.
Yeah.
So, um, and again, that was due to my age and inexperience in life, and my overconfident belief in myself that I can get through anything, and beat anything, even a recession. I literally should have walked away. I should have closed the doors 4 months before I did, and my life would be very different now. But you know what? I don't think I'd be doing this podcast if I did that.
Yeah.
Right? I'm the most resilient dude you'll ever meet. I don't care. You can throw bricks at my face. It's not going to slow me down. You know what I mean? I'll dodge and weave the best I can. Yeah, I'll put my arm up. I'll be bleeding. I'll be bleeding on my eyes and my ear and my mouth, and I'll crawl on my hands and knees. I do not care. I will succeed. Right? That's the mentality you need to have. If you're going to open a business, you have to say, I love this so much. No one's going to fucking take this away from me. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to fucking win. And if anyone doesn't like it, I just will cut them out of my life if I have to. Right? Anyone that's going to bring any negative energy to me is done. They have to be done. You cannot communicate with them when you're running your business, right? I've tried during this business and my previous one, and I promise you, it will hurt your business in a very significant way at such an early stage in its life, right? Because it's going to affect you, which is good. Anything that affects you directly affects your business at this like really young toddler stage, before like 5 to 7 years old, right? Anything that affects you in a negative way is going to affect your business, no matter how you spin it. Unless you're not in your business and you have somebody running it for you, but in the first 5 to 7 years, that's very unlikely, right?
Yeah.
And if you're doing that, then it's not a business you're passionate about. And again, those people would not be listening to this podcast.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's
They
right.
just bought a business and said, "Hey, buddy, you run it. Cool." Right?
Mhm.
That's an asset. It's not, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, building resilience, I think, is that's the benefit you get from learning about your failures. You know what I mean? Being
Yeah.
able to when you actively learn and you try to learn from that failure, you will build resilience and be able to be like, whatever, and it will just bounce right off. You'll be like, I don't care. I'm going to just bear down and get it done.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's
So
just
like,
something that's what happens with failure. Failure builds that resilience inside of you to be like, I
yeah,
don't care how many times I fail. I'm gonna keep going hard. And once that's built, nothing is gonna be able to stop you. You know what I mean?
exactly. Because you're building it on the most solid foundation you possibly can even imagine, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you do it the right way, all the little things that are going to screw you up or weaken your foundation, right? Say the first 5 years you're building your foundation for your business. Anything that you don't address is going to weaken your foundation, right? So at the closer you get to 5 years, the 5 year mark where people like, some people don't breathe till the 7 year mark, but still, like, once you get the closer you get to whatever mark you have set, like that 5 or 7 years, to be like, I made it, right? The more likely it is that everything is gonna crumble and
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna lose everything or a piece of everything or a piece of you along the way because you have to deal with so many issues and you're running around putting out so many fires all day, right? But you could have preemptively stopped it 3 years ago by by embracing the issue and really learning from the failure or learning from the issue, figuring it out. All this stuff really goes in. It will if you take everything in as a whole. Like when I lost the business, I was like for like a year and a half, I was just like a zombie, dude. Like for real, I was like a zombie for like a year and a half. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what my life was for. You know what I mean? I love my family, but other than my wife and kids, I was like, dude, what am I even here for? You know what I mean? And it wasn't even my fault. Once I got to that place, no, I have. Once I got to that place where I was like, okay, I understood that. Like, actually, came to that decision conclusion on my own
Yeah.
that it was not on me. My business was good, and then that happened, and like I went back and looked, and I saw the pattern. Business was going like this, and then it was like a red line got drawn down, dink, and not a
Yeah.
single thing happened after that, right? So that's I'm like, okay, so this is not 100% on me, right? Like, so, but at the same time, I own all my failings, but you have to do it in a unique way, right?
Yeah.
Um, you have to do it in like I said, that non self deprecating way. But in the end of the day, you take all this stuff in. I took all my failures from my business in, all my failures from other business, all my learnings from good and bad, right? I try to catch stuff early. I can see things happening earlier now because I do that, so I'm able to address things before they happen, right? Because I see a semblance of an issue that I dealt with 7 years ago at this other company I worked for, and I'm like, I see that shit coming. We better like stop right now. We got to do this and this and this to see what solution to take. And
Yeah.
Kyle's been like, what? And then once we get into it, he's like, oh, and that's why he's smiling. He's like, yep.
Yeah.
Because
No,
it's,
literally.
you know what I mean? And that's why having Kyle and I with the age difference, that yin and yang of age, um, it brings a really unique perspective to the table, right? But at the end of the day, no matter what youthful energy and thought process Kyle has, it will never overcome actual physical experience on this topic,
Yeah. No,
right?
100%.
You can't imagine enough. You can't. You
Yeah.
just can't, right? But
Yeah, unless you live through it, you're not gonna be able to just conceptualize what could happen. You know what I mean? Unless it's happened or you see it happen to
exactly.
someone else. Like you just can't like, and you I mean you don't even know what, like, if you don't even know what business you're building yet, you can't possibly don't you can't possibly think of the failures that's gonna happen by building the business, and why start there? You know
No,
what I
yeah,
mean?
you
Like,
don't want to start negative. You want to start
yeah,
positive, right? Otherwise,
exactly.
you'll never get started. Um,
Exactly. Like, no, don't start negative either. I feel like that's another thing that we should probably touch on a little bit, and that's if you're listening to this right now and you're like, I want to start a business because this has been really informative to me and it's my dream and it's something that I've always wanted to do, then do not start by saying, "Oh, I don't think it'll work because of this. I don't think it'll work because of this." Like, that's don't you can't do that. That's, for lack of a better, that's a loser's mindset. And if you want to be a business owner, you cannot have a loser's mindset ever.
no, you have to be the most arrogant person on the
Yeah,
planet,
you
bro.
have to. You
Like
have
you're
to.
like, dude, there's a world out there, and there's a
Yeah.
bazillion businesses, and I want to go out and start one, and I want to
Yeah.
be successful. And
Mhm.
everyone's like, no matter what business you start, there's another business doing it, right?
Mhm.
You're not going to be the first at anything. Even
No.
us, our what I'm doing, what Kyle and I are doing is so wildly crazy unique. You know what I mean? But there are other people doing semblances of what we do. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like it's not like it's new and unique, but it's not like brand new. It's not
Yeah.
like there's no version of this out. The versions out there of this, by the way, we found after we opened.
Yeah.
Even though we did lots and lots and lots of research, they're just far and few between. There's not a lot of businesses doing what we do, but there are
But
other
there are
businesses
some.
out there
Yeah.
similar, right?
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, you know what I mean? It's just you have to be wildly arrogant to say, I'm going to open a business, right? I'm going to open a corner store. I'm going to open a hair salon. I'm going to open to this. I'm going to open to that. There's millions of them everywhere, right? What makes you so special that you think you're going to be successful in this like tough market,
Yeah.
right? Dude, because I'm gonna be. Because I'm the
Mhm.
motherfucking man. That's why. Right?
Yeah.
Because you're the man. Because you're the woman. That's why. Because you got it. You
Mhm.
got that thing in you. You got that thing in you. And you know it's your passion and you know that you can do it. Right? You just have to believe in yourself. Everyone's like, you just gotta believe in yourself. Right? No one believes in himself more than an arrogant person. Right?
Yeah.
I'm beyond the point of believing in myself. Even when I
No,
lost my
100%.
business, that was the only
Mhm.
time in my life where I crashed and burned from failing at something, right?
Mhm.
And that was I had a really young family and I had a lot of issues that really came from. I'm sure you can imagine. So that was a pretty devastating time in my life, and it wasn't necessarily because of just losing the business,
Yeah.
right? So,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, I it took me longer than I wanted to or longer than I ever thought it would. But I pulled up my bootstraps and just went right back to it. Got back in the grind. You know what I mean? And it's what I do wrong, what I do different. Da da da. Go here, go here, go here. Learn, 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 learn until I came up with the next aha. And as soon as
Yeah.
I came up with that, I went headlong, hard, right? For the last 4 years, I've been working like 18, 20 hours a day, right? 16
Mhm.
hours a day. Trying not to, but like in the beginning, I had a job, right? Dude, you gotta believe in yourself. I had a job, I had a full-time job and a family, right?
Yeah.
When am I supposed to work on this business idea? When everyone else is, when I can, right?
Mhm.
A couple hours here, a couple hours there, late at night, lunch break, at work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, when are you supposed to do it? Whenever you get a freaking moment, you stop, you go, I only have 5 minutes, right? I never said that. I never said, I only have 5 minutes. I'm not going to. No, I go, I have 5 minutes. I'm going to go do this thing. Cool.
Mhm.
And then off to go do whatever. And then I come back, go, and then I leave and go do the next thing with my family or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're like in the car. My wife might drive. If we're in the car and everyone's just kind of chilling, and it's a 20-minute ride. I'm like, hey, babe, I'm going to look some stuff. I got to look this thing for a bit. She's like, oh, yeah, go ahead. So I'm sitting on the phone, right? Like any moment I had, I was working on a business, right?
Mhm.
So I wasn't working on a business 18 hours a day or 20 hours a day, but I was running on 4 to 6 hours sleep a night. A lot of people can't do that. A lot of people do. I did. I've done that for a long time. So I just continued doing that. And then I got to the point where I quit my job, right? And I'm doing the business full time. I don't work 20 hours a day anymore. I don't work 18 hours a day because I don't need to. It's not healthy. It's not healthy, right?
Yeah.
And I'll be 100% honest with everyone listening to this podcast. 1 year ago, less than about no, October, November last year,
Mm-hmm.
2023, I almost completely lost my business, right? It was, and I say that is a really weird statement to make, but because we're successful, but I say that because I was running on no sleep, right? I was grinding hard all day, all night. There was times I was going 2 to 3 days with no sleep because I had to get this stuff done. It was just me. Kyle's at college, right? It was literally all on me, right? So I was just doing whatever I had to do. I was talking to people, I was building products, I was doing this, I was doing this, I was doing this. I was literally, I would go a couple days without getting sleep sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, I had an issue that wasn't that big of an issue, but it was a big issue, but
Yeah.
not like big enough to put me out of business, right? But because of where my mental state was, because I was so exhausted and overworked that, and I'll be honest with you, after that issue is when a lot of the 2 and 3 day nights came in, or 2 and 3 days in a row came in, was after that issue. Before that, it was just like a couple hours sleep a night, right? And just that affected me in a way that I couldn't make a smart enough cognitive decision to make adjustments on the fly and pivot the way I needed to, right? Because I wasn't 100% where I needed to be. I was able to adjust on the fly and make all the decisions. It just took me a longer period of time to adjust. It took me a longer period of time to implement, and I ended up losing customers over it, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, like if I wasn't able to take a step back and really I just went after a couple weeks, I just went, fuck, I don't know what to do. So I just
Mm-hmm.
took a big step back and looked at everything and reevaluated and got some sleep and took a big, deep, long look at everything and went, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, I am a fucking idiot. I cannot believe I just did that. I
Yeah.
almost lost my business and I didn't need to. The solution is
Mm-hmm.
this. It's not that hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I took that situation and learned a lot from it, right? And I promise you that will never happen again.
Yeah.
You know what I
Because you
mean?
took the proper time to learn from the situation.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So I learned from it, right? So like practical life experience, like I learned from that and I implemented it, and we're not going to lose our business to anything that would ever come close to that ever again, because we have safeguards in place. We have things in place that fixed it. We have safeguards in place. That's never going to happen again, right? If we have
Mm-hmm.
that problem, we're Gucci,
Yeah,
right?
I would like to talk about a little bit of a smaller problem that we had. Literally, what was it last week when the social media stuff happened? Literally, like the day after the podcast came out.
You're gonna put me on blast on the podcast, bro.
Oh, what? It had nothing to do with you. Remember that
Oh
was
yeah,
a
no,
few years ago. It had
that's right. I
nothing to
thought
do with
no,
you.
no, I was like freaking out. I thought I did something to our Instagram. We lost our
Yeah, and
Instagram
so
account. They like,
all of our Instagram accounts got shut down, and we're like, and I was literally getting ready to upload stuff because it was last Thursday because the podcast literally just dropped that day, and I was like, all right, I gotta get some clips out there, gotta get a static post now that we have our new social media accounts for just the podcast. I was like, all right. I got to get this all going, get it all ready. I mean, I literally made it that day. Actually, I mean, it was that day. I literally made the accounts so that way we could be able to do all that stuff.
yeah,
And so I was like, all right, cool. And I was like, oh man, what? This is weird. And then I went on, and it was like, oh yeah, you lost your accounts. And I was like, dang it. So then we talked, and we're like, all right, we're both gonna figure this out. We're gonna look online. We're gonna sit down. We're gonna figure this out right now. And we ended up figuring it out and got taken care of that day. I mean, sometimes failures or mistakes are out of your control, like you said, but also they're not end game. Sometimes a lot of them are smaller mistakes that stack on top of each other that crush you, and don't. But you can't. The only way to not really let that happen is by learning and adapting and being resilient and being like, these mistakes, I'm not going to let them crush me or crush my business. You know what I mean?
exactly. And um, I think the best way to really describe, I'm gonna jump on and say, as small as a problem may seem, it will get bigger if it's not addressed, right?
Yeah.
But if you take the time and analyze everything along the way, the bigger issues will be and farther in between, and there'll be fewer of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because consequently, nothing is going to stack up because everything's being addressed, right?
Yeah.
But when you do get hit with bigger things, right, or a thing that is very jarring, your reaction is going to end up being much less emotional and much less, let's get it, right? Like, like in that scenario, you've never dealt with a big thing like that yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other than seeing me go through stuff.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? I'm like, bro, it's all good. It doesn't matter. We'll get it back. No matter what the thing says that we did, we didn't do, right?
Yeah.
We follow all the guidelines. They're not going to shut our business accounts down, right? Without looking at them and saying, oh, they didn't do anything wrong, right?
Exactly.
Or,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, they did. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that otherwise no one's going to be on their platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, so let's take a breath, take a step back, and go and do this and this and this.
Yeah.
Right? 10 years ago, I might have had a different reaction.
Mm-hmm.
My reaction might have been more like yours, right?
Yeah.
I
100%.
don't know. 20 years ago, when I was your age, my reaction might have been more like yours. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, like, I don't know, but it doesn't matter, right? It's being able to stay calm in a moment like that and just take it in and not let your emotions come into play and then analyze it and break it down, right?
100% right.
I literally said to Kyle, "Go, I understand you're frustrated and I understand your emotions and they're really coming out." I'm like, "But there's really no need for it." And he goes, "What do you
Yeah.
mean?" And then I said to him what I just said, and he goes, "Oh yeah, no, my bad."
Yeah.
He's like, "My bad, my bad. All right, let's figure
Yeah.
this thing out."
No.
Right? Like
100%.
because
Man.
any problem you have is solvable,
Mm-hmm.
right? Maybe not the way you want it to be solved, maybe not the solution that you want, but every problem is solvable. And then you just need to figure out what all the solutions are and which one makes the most sense for you and your business, right?
100%.
At the end of the day, stay
Mm-hmm.
calm, be practical, be smart, and don't let your emotions get involved.
Yep.
You know?
Very true. Well, I think that we covered pretty much everything we wanted to talk about. So we have a few extra little end topic things. Obviously, I mentioned before that we started a bunch of new small business revolution social media. It's pretty much small business revolution on everything. I think on Instagram there is an underscore after small business revolution, but it's business revolution on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, and we're working on X and LinkedIn as well.
Yep.
So make sure to go check those out. We're going to be very active on those, fielding questions. We just wanted to make it separate so that way we can interact with people who listen better because we'll be able to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I really wanted a way to be able to interact with business owners. And Kyle was like, okay, I think this is the best solution. And we kind of went through a bunch of different ideas and we're doing the same thing. We're just figuring it out and learning and figuring out and learning what makes the most sense for us. Right. But we're going to do the podcast and I'm also going to do, we're going to be doing some other projects too. Right. Like I'm going to be doing, if we have topics that we cover like lightly like this, I might get right or in depth like this, I might get into some other examples and do a little bit deeper dive to set it up as almost like a Q&A for people or people to go in and talk about things that have happened to the failures they've had and how they got through it, right? The idea is just to help each other and empower each other. And the only way to do that is to pass information between each other, right? We call this podcast Small Business Revolution for a reason, right? I'm tired of big corporate America, like banging small businesses around and treating us like crap. Right? We deserve respect, so now let's demand it, right? The best way we can do that is by making sure each other are successful, right? The problem most business owners have is they get into business and they don't have anyone they could talk to. They don't have a business confidant because usually the only business owners they know are in the same industry as them. So they can only talk so much because they don't want to share trade. They don't want to accidentally share something they do that's a trade secret for them. Because they're friendly, but they're still their competition. You know what I mean? Which is heavily in the businesses that we interact with. That's super heavy, right? But there's, dude, we have to be there for each other and empower each other and ensure each other is successful, because then we come together and we become the giant, and
100%.
corporate America can kiss our ass.
100%.
On that note, I have to go. I have a meeting. I have 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
thank you everybody.
bro.
Thank you everybody for watching this podcast. Make sure to stream it at the places that you know where to stream it, because now there's a link tree in all of our social media bios. So now I don't have to say it every time. And there'll be a link in the YouTube and everywhere. Make sure to go check out all of our social medias, give it a follow. That's the best place to interact with us. We'll be able to get back to you right away. And stay tuned for a lot more projects that we have upcoming, up ahead, especially on the YouTube channel. We have a ton of new stuff planned. There we go. That we are really excited about. So thank you guys. We appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next week.